we're going to tie up one of these here. Damsel flies, dragonfly, whatever you want to consider it. There's a lake that I'm going to Monday, and there are, I'm really not exaggerating, about this time of year they start coming out, and there's actually millions of them, and they're about this size. They're about this size fly. So one of the things that I want to do, because I've seen blue ones and I've seen I've seen purple ones, and I don't really have any purple materials, so I'm going to be using a purple tubing. I would prefer, I would prefer to use clear, like I did with this one, because when I use the clear tubing, I can fill the tubing up with this here. And I need to see if they have this stuff in purple and red, because I think those are two colors I could use in tying this fly up. But I think the blue and this bubblegum color that could resemble purple when I'm finished with it. Of course, I could take a Sharpie and kind of color it in with the tubing that I'm going to use for the tail. So let's go through what all I'm going to be using here. Number one, I'm going to use a clear thread, or clear thread. It's a white thread. It's a braided thread. It's a 3/0 from, and I get this from Orvis. I don't tie super small dry flies, so this thread here does an excellent job for me. And if you're a beginner tyer, and you just want to tie bugs for bluegill or bass or something like that, this is a very, very forgiving thread. I mean, you can really crank down on it and not have to worry about it breaking on you. So I'll go ahead and load up this hook here. We'll go ahead and make it here in a second. But I'm going to load up the hook. And a lot of threads, those, the thinner threads, the flat threads, you can pop them off and be good. But this stuff here is not going to break that easy, so you might have to cut it with a pair of scissors. So let's go through what we're using here. Again, we got the clear tubing for the tail. I've got the flash that goes up through the tail, and part of the reason for this video is to show you how to get that flash up through there without fighting it. A little bit of short hackle on the underbody. We're using that. There's a difference on the thickness of typically when you get materials from a fly shop or craft shop, it's a 2 or 3 millimeter foam. This is a 2, and the 2 millimeter foam, when you're using this style hook here, this glow bug, it's a Gamakatsu, it's a C14S size 4, and it seems to be I'm all sweaty and stuff sticking to me. I could turn the air conditioner on, but we'd be making a lot of noise in here. So anyway, back to get this stuff out of my way. Back to the foam. Okay, so there's a 2 millimeter, and then what I'm using is a 5 millimeter. You can get this at the craft stores as well. I don't know that there's any fly shops that sells this 5 millimeter foam. But the reason why I like using the thicker foam is to give it, and you can use layers. I mean, you could just use layers of foam, but when you tie it off in the front, they're going to splay out on you. You're not going to have a nice solid head on your fly. But what it does is there's a couple of things. It really bumps up to give it a lot of buoyancy on a heavier hook. And it also allows me to thread the wing through the foam. You'd be hard pressed to do it through anything you know, less than that 5mm. So let's go ahead and get ready to tie one of these up. And again, I need to go through the material list here. We said the hook, that Gamakatsu glow bug, and of course we're going to use a piece of foam. This is the 5mm. I cut it in a 1/4-inch strip. And then I have a piece of the tubing already cut. There's other tubings out there, you know, for used for tube flies and, you know, that sort of thing. But this stuff's only 2mm in diameter. I mean, it's a very, very small tubing. Okay, and that hole is even smaller. And the reason for the instruction on feeding this tube is you'd be hard pressed to get the material through. Man, I am sweaty. And I like putting my elbows on my desk. So, so to thread, well, let's go on. I've got a piece of hackle here. It's a, what I did is I stripped off one side of the hackle, as you can see there. And the reason why I did that is so the hackle doesn't lay down on top of itself and cause it to spread out to the front and the back and leaving ribs. And I just didn't want to do that. I mean, when I use these, when I use the hackles and I want something that's going to represent legs, I want to strip one side of it so that it lays a lot nicer. And you'll see what I'm talking about, I think, here in a few minutes. The other thing is for the wing is I use EP fibers. Now you can get your EP fibers at a fly shop. A lot of people give me a hard way to go because not a lot of people, actually there's only a couple of guys that give me a hard way to go, and they really come out, you know, say some pretty nasty things sometimes. But the wings are EP fibers. And I get the EP fibers from this stuff right here. This is called Bonnie cord. And what you do is and the best Bonnie cord to use, it comes in different sizes, 2, 4, and 6 millimeter. You want the thicker, the 6mm, because if you only use the 2mm, you're not going to be able to fan this out to where it. There's the head of it there, and I melt them off so that I can keep everything in place. But that's what happens when you comb out the Bonnie cord. You've got yourself a really nice piece of EP fiber right there. So that can save you a little bit of money. And you buy one, you know, roll of this Bonnie cord, and it'll absolutely last you forever. And it does come in different colors. So, you know, rather than color it with markers, you're better off to buy multiple colors, and that way it's color fast and you don't have to worry about any water or the sun bleaching it out. It'll hold its color much better. So that's all the materials that we use. And so what we want to do first is load up this this tubing. And the best way to load the tubing up, and I guess I got to decide on what color of this flash that I'm going to use, but the best way to load this tubing up is to use a bobbin threader. And then if you do that, you can see that the threader goes all the way through the tube. And then what we'll do here in a second, after we cut off the color that we're going to use, and I think I'm going to try white, and I want to get probably about 5 or 6 strands of this because I'm going to double it over. There we go. That should be good. 5 or 6 strands, double it over, even it up the best I can, and cut it again. And now what we're going to do is we're going to feed the one cut end of the flash through the threader and then pull. You want to pull it all the way through, and if you pull a couple of pieces through, it's no big deal. Okay, so that gives that tail a really nice looking flash in the back of it there. So what I want to do now is pull these strands down. I don't know if you can see it. Let's see if you can see it on here. Yeah, just a little bit. So, okay, so what I want to do is I want to pull the strands to where they're about right there. I don't want them to go all the way in, because what I'm going to want to do is burn off the end of those strands. So it kind of helps it stay in place. Plus, it'll give it a it'll give it a dark end, like you see on the on these flies anyway. Kind of a. Now we're not going to do any. I'm not going to do any barring on this. You know, little loops or anything like that. I don't think it's needed. But I'm going to, on my piece, I'm going to cut the other pieces off right flush. And I didn't really go over this, but the length of your tubing, I would say a good length of this tubing would be 3/8 of an inch right there. So what I'm going to want to do is I want to be able to taper this onto my the shank of the hook. And to stick really well, I'm going to want to cut a taper on that tubing the best that I can, like so. And then that way, when I put it on the hook, it's going to stay on there and ride well. Now, to actually give it some insurance, I'm going to throw a bead of super glue on there to kind of help hold it into place and keep it from spinning around. Now, the material's got a little bit of a bend to it, so I want the bend to go up on the hook. So we'll tie that in here, and right like that. And then I'll get my thread to go all the way around kind of even there. And that's the reason, another reason why I like this this 3/0 braided thread, is because it does a build up really fast, almost like a regular sewing thread, but this is definitely a tying thread. But it's typically used for larger flies like this one. Okay, so now what I want to do, I'm going to use the bubblegum color here, but before I lay it down, I'm going to want to taper it as well. So I'm not going to use those scissors, let's use these here. I'm going to cut a taper on it on both sides like that, but then because of it being so thick, I'm going to cut another taper on it so that I actually almost cut it all the way down to a 2mm size right there. Now what we're going to do is bring my thread to the front, lay the, and again, I like insurance on these types of flies to keep them from spinning on me, so I'll put a little dab of super glue on there, and then lay it on there, and we'll go ahead and tie her down. You want to have that rubber, your foam rubber, as straight back on the hook as you possibly can. Okay, now I do another build up. Now we got to build up on the tail to make sure it doesn't pull out. The tail is hollow, so it's going to be holding air inside there. That's going to help with buoyancy. I've got an aquarium. I closed off both ends, shot a piece of this in the aquarium. Did this a couple days ago to see how it was going to float, and it's still floating pretty solid, so you don't have to worry about about it sinking on you. It actually helps it, you know, with the foam to keep it on top of the water. Now, because I'm using a white thread, what I'll do is I'll take a pink Sharpie and I'll go back through and color my thread to try and keep the keep everything consistent. And this is what, and I do have black in this thread, in this braided thread, in a 3/0. I have black and red actually. But to get different colors, I'll use a I'll just use a regular Sharpie to get that in there. Okay, so now what we're going to want to do is tie in our hackle to get our legs in there, and it's not going to take a whole lot of turns on the hackle. So actually I could have waited for a minute before I colored that thread. Oh, so it stays pink all the way around. There we go. Alright, so now the reason why I've got this hackle stripped on one side is so that when I go to turn it on there, it doesn't take a whole lot of wraps, you know, about 2 or 3 is enough. And then I'll just go ahead and tie this off. I'll wrap this around a couple times to grab it really good. And then cut it off and save it for another one. I'll get my thread back a little bit, and again I'm going to do a little bit of coloring here. Like so. Now we go ahead and bring the body over, and like I said, I can really pull on this thread and cinch it down just like that. Now I've got me a really nice little bump right there. The eye is exposed nicely so that I can get the line threaded onto my leader, or get this fly threaded onto my leader. Now what I'm going to want to do is kind of put my scissors up against the hook and then cut straight across. That'll give a real nice look even around the front to start shaping the eyes. Now what I'll do is I'll take and cut on each side, take the sharp edges off, and then kind of round it off a little bit like so, and put myself a really nice looking eye on there. So now we can go ahead and, you know, finish it off. Put a couple of them on there. There we go. It's nice and tight. And then again, we still have that little bit of white thread showing there, so we'll go ahead and hit that with the marker and cover it up. Just like that. Now, if you want, you can kind of hit it with the Sharpie and give it a little bit of a pattern on there. Hit the sides. Actually, on the sides, I think what I might want to do is hit it with some black. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to use a dark brown so that I can put some actual eyes on there, just like that. it's not too bad right there. But now what we want to do is get that wing that we have on the blue one. We want to get this wing through there, and you kind of do the same thing with the wing as you did with the tail to thread that that flash through the tail. Now we're going to be able to run this, and this is one of the reasons why you want the 5mm foam, is so you can run this through just like that, and then take your bobbin threader again, run it through the foam just like that, and then I don't know what I did with my piece that I already had pre-cut, but we'll go ahead and cut another one. Just cut a really thin piece, I don't know, probably a little over 1/16 of an inch in diameter. I have no idea how many pieces are on there. But what you'll do is you'll take it and put it through your threader and then pull through again, just like that. Now you got a really nice tight fit in there, but I still don't trust that the tight fit is going to hold it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one side, pull it out, and put some super glue on it on both sides to get it to soak through nice and evenly, so that it grabs all the threads. And then what we'll do is we'll pull it tight to get a small diameter, and then pull it through, all the way through, and then back and forth a little bit, set it in place, and then hit it with your fingers. Super glue cures with, ouch, woo, and it heats up. it heats up. It cures with pressure. So now I've got the pressure in there, and that is not going to pull out. That stuff's going to stay pretty even. So now the other thing that I'm going to do is I've got on my scissors, I've got a pair of curved scissors, and what I'll do is I'll kind of pull the EP fibers up, kind of push it down a little bit to get a kind of a parachute effect to it, so that it cuts nice and round, and then just take my curved scissors and look at it, and I didn't quite cut enough off, so I'll go ahead and do this again. Now I'm going to have to cut it from the other side. There we go. There we go. That's how easy it is to tie up this Damsel dragonfly. And I guarantee you this thing's going to be, it'll be very durable. It's going to float nicely because it's got that 5mm foam on there. All the synthetics kind of help keep buoyancy on the water. And then this tube back here is closed off on the end and tied in here, so the tube is hollow. That's going to help with the buoyancy, and the tube is very rigid. The nice thing about this tubing is it's very flexible. So if a fish takes it in, everything flexes nicely, and it'll just go right back into place. The other thing about the EP fibers, a lot of people are going to say, well, that fanned wing like that is going to cause your line to spin on you, and there's going to be a lot of resistance to it. That might be true with some materials, but the EP fibers, when it gets wet, what will happen is, when it gets wet, it's going to cast back and taper back along the tail like that. And when it's wet, what happens is when it falls in the water, the fibers are going to come forward again and splay out on the water, and it's going to give you that extended wing look that the damsels or dragonflies have. So there you go. I don't know what you guys think about it, but I can guarantee you this is going to catch some bass. I was going to wait to do a video on it, but I thought I mean, it's a simple fly, it really is, and you can do variations of it, kind of change it up if you want. The biggest thing is using the 5mm foam so that you can, you know, put a hole in it to be able to thread your EP fibers through using a bobbin threader, just like that. So there you go. That's as easy as it gets. I'll go ahead and shut this video down and try to answer any questions that you might have. So, hey, thanks for watching. This is Mike. We'll catch you again on another video.